Welcome back to the Empire Sports and Mind podcast. I'm here with John as always. We have a great week. The Jets lost to the Bills. They got crushed by the Bills, and I would say it's a really bad week for New York football. Even though the Giants won, because now they're no longer really in the tank sweepstakes. They're still top five, but no, a win here was not what they wanted. The Rangers are 12-1. The Knicks are 8-5. So other than New York football, things are good in New York sports. But let's start with the obviously the big story with the Jets, the terrible loss.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest, Matthew. The game was over before it started. The Bills, they deferred. Jets got the ball first. And then if the fumble happened with the kickoff recovery by Xavier Gibson. So you knew it was going to be a long game after that happened.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Jets I mean, when the Bills made it 3-0, it was insurmountable. The amount of points that the Jets had a game because of how bad their offense is. This offense has gone so bad that you thought it was worse with Gase. It's not. It wasn't. At Gase, I thought Gase was going to be the lowest of lows that I've ever
Mm-hmm.
experienced being a Jets fan, offense wise. This is just. I think they have the worst third down conversion percentage in NFL history. I mean, it
Yeah,
is so bad. They
yeah.
were 0 for 11 this game, worst in history. Red zone is near the bottom in NFL history. It's just so bad. And they finally made a quarterback switch in the third quarter from Zach Wilson. Tim Boyle trots out. It doesn't really get much better. The defense wasn't. This is probably the worst game all year defensively. But honestly, I'm not going to kill the defense because it's human nature. We talked about it in weeks ago that it's going to be human nature for this defense to give up because they don't have much to play for if the offense is going to play like this every week. Look, there were some lazy plays, missed tackles and some plays that the Jets defense usually doesn't give up, but I don't really blame them because their offense, they have really nothing to play for.
Yeah, no, I mean, I guess pop quiz, John. Do you know what the longest offensive play of the day was?
For the Jets, the fourth down fake punt
Fake punt, a fake
to
punt.
Brendan Eccles. Yeah.
So that's just that. Obviously, I think that kind of describes how the game went. They weren't able to get going in any facet of the game. You could look at even the run game. Brees Hall 10 rushes for 23 yards. No, basically, the run game was non-existent. Zach Wilson totally ineffective in the passing game, and then Tim Boyle, you're right, comes in the fourth quarter, isn't much better, and no, we'll talk about it more. He's named the starter for next week. I mean, we can discuss what type of problems that's going to solve, but the offense it didn't get going. You look at the receiving leaderboard for this game, and it's Brees Hall with 50 yards. So those are checkdowns. Jeremy Rucker, 25 yards. He had one 17 or 18-yard pass completion. Otherwise, those were insignificant. And then third is Brandon Eccles again on the punt. I mean, on the punt return. And all of those guys, the next guy is Tyler Conklin, 18 yards. Not a single wide receiver had more than 10 yards in this game for the Jets. So that's such an alarming statistic. There's no other way around it. And like we said, defense naturally was going to regress. It's kind of what happened last year. You're out the whole game on the field. Your team's not really in it. You're losing games. You're not putting up any points. So the defense is, rightfully so, not really motivated to play well at this point in the year. And it's something that we've kind of figured would happen. So nothing really clicked this game for the Jets.
Yeah. I mean, it's just Matthew. It's the same year as last year. Actually, it's our 1-year anniversary show. Empire Sports and Mind podcast has been around for 1 year. Kind of crazy. The year's gone really a lot, very fast. A lot's happened, but with the Jets, not a lot's changed with them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, other teams, you could probably say a lot has changed from the Giants being a playoff team last year. Now they're looking for tanking for the first overall pick. So a lot has changed with them, but the Jets, it's the same old. And this is not the only year it's been the same old Jets. It is ever since I've been in second grade, it's been the same old Jets. I haven't seen a competent offense ever. I mean, it's just I'm kind of when I was watching this game, I was numb. I was not expecting anything. When the Jets took the field, they went down 3-0, and the offense came back on the field. I said to myself, they're not going to score a point in this game. I was not confident. When they got a first down, I was shocked. When they got a first down, I think it was to Brees Hall on a check on the first down of the game. I was shocked there were no flags on the play. It's just that bad. You're expecting a flag to be made on a 10-yard first down convert. It's so bad. It really is. And Zach Wilson, I think his career for the Jets is over. We said this last year. I thought his career was over last year. And of course, Rodgers gets hurt, so he played this year because they know we'll get into that. I don't know why they haven't. We'll get into it right now. I don't know the Jets not having insurance policy other than Zach Wilson for Aaron Rodgers is a disgrace. I mean, they did it to themselves, and Joe Douglas, it's on him. And a lot of people are going to blame for Robert Saleh. Some people coming from for his head, they want him fired. I don't believe that is going to solve anything. But Joe Douglas deserves a lot of blame for not getting insurance policy for Aaron Rodgers. He's 39. He's 39 years old, going on 40. And it's the NFL. Injuries can happen. He went down the first game. No one was expecting it, but again, it was possible from the get go when you traded for this guy because of how old he was. And they had Zach Wilson. They wanted to. I think they said in today's press conference they wanted him to get a red shirt year. If you were going to red shirt year him, make him your third string quarterback. He's second in line. I mean, he could have came into the game. He could have came as quarterback for the whole year if Aaron Rodgers got hurt. What do you mean red shirt him? Red shirt is taking him away from the game, not having him possibly be a backup. Like, I just don't understand what they mean by that. That's an excuse, I think. And just look, it's a disaster. The season is an absolute disaster. I don't even know if the Jets are going to win one more game this year because they can't score a touchdown. They finally broke that drought this game, but I mean, this is such a disaster, Matthew.
It's terrible, and you're not going to see Aaron Rodgers if this team is what are they 5-9, 4-9, 4-9 by in 3 weeks whenever the mid-December target return date is. You're not gonna see that. So and look, I just think there's you can blame Joe Douglas for the lack of depth at QB, which I do and you do, but it's all across the board on offense. So there are teams in the NFL where even if you have a not good QB, Josh Dobbs was competent on both the Cardinals and the Vikings. If you surround him with the okay weapons and okay pieces across the board, you can make it work. So yes, it's a lack of depth issue at quarterback, but it's a lack of depth issue at offensive line. Dwayne Brown, you were totally reliant on him being the starter this year. I knew from the beginning, I was like, I don't know, this guy was out last year. He's 38, 39, whatever he is. He was thinking about retirement last year. Remember we were talking about that? And you were totally reliant on him being the left tackle. Depth at the offensive line, depth at wide receiver once Corey Davis retired. I mean, I guess that's out of your control. But ultimately, you traded away Elijah Moore. He wanted out. He's on pace. I saw today for around 700 yards this year. He'd be I don't he wouldn't be leading the Jets because Garrett Wilson, but he would be top 2 on the team receiver. And there's a lack of depth there. I guess there's depth at running back, but there's just issues across the board with depth on offense.
Yes, and you could look at the weapons. You still have Garrett Wilson, great wide receiver, but he's getting covered by an extra safety. He's getting covered by a safety every game. He's getting double, triple teams in some cases. So the teams dare the Jets. The opposing team dares the Jets to beat them with their other receivers. Their other receivers this year, Alan Lazard was supposed to be Corey Davis, but he walked out on the Jets. That kind of killed them this year. And then your fourth option, Xavier Gibson, Irvin Charles, and Brownlee, like those guys aren't due. Those are all undrafted free agents, so you can't rely on them. So you're right, lack of depth. The offensive line, I think, going with Brown, relying on Dwayne Brown to be your starting left tackle at the start of the year was a risky play. I think that wasn't the right play. I think they should have maybe drafted a tackle. But then again, they weren't in a great drafting position. While I think swapping with the Packers for that Rodgers trade killed them. It actually made them not get Broderick Jones, who they wanted in the draft, and he's been tremendous this year for the Steelers. So them not getting swapping, that kind of killed them. But then again, I think it's just the injuries on the offensive line. It's not even like the GM. You don't even prepare for this scenario where you're using your fifth string guard, third string tackle. Like, look, you had to have good depth, and it's important to have that. But you never prepare for losing this amount of guys throughout the season. And it was the same thing last year. They lost so many guys on the offensive line last year, and you have to look at it. Like I saw someone bring up I don't know who it was, a point today. Like, is it the quarterback that's causing all these issues? Because the quarterback is in charge of changing the protection on a snap by snap basis. And if you're not changing it to help your guys, there's injury risk there. If you have 3 guys coming and they're all on the tackle, so there's injury concern. I think some of this is on the quarterback.
No, I believe that. And you look at the Wilson, who's basically is inexperienced. He looks out there as it gets, bad throws, bad decisions, like every game. There's no doubt in my mind that he's calling incorrect protections. Like how would he know? No, Aaron Rodgers, I'm sure he would, but how would Zach Wilson know this guy's blitzing, this guy's not? I don't think he does. So So the personnel, the lack of depth, that's on the general manager. I mean, what I texted you this the other day. I said, Robert Saleh deserves some blame as well. And looking back on, I'm not sure if it's whoever's in charge of on-field personnel deserves blame this year because you look at it just seems like they're never going with the winning, whoever the winning formula, whoever's hot, whoever's looking, good, whatever can give them the best chance to win at any given moment. I mean, even this game, Brees Hall's much better than Dalvin Cook. Everyone knows that. But Dalvin Cook had his longest rush of the year this year in the first quarter, 10 yards, first down. And he got one more touch the rest of the game. And Brees Hall was bottled up all game. And it looks like it was the second consecutive game where, with limited touches, Dalvin Cook looked solid. I mean, I know just on that one rush alone. And across the whole year, they determined to get guys like Randall Cobb out there, CJ Uzama out there, Alan Lazard out there. And these guys have just not been effective. And there have been other options, though. In the beginning of the year, there was Xavier Gibson, obviously. There was Mecole Hardman, Jeremy Rucker, Tyler Conklin over Uzama. And so there's just been personnel mistakes as well this year, which I feel like that falls on the coach.
Yeah, and also, like it was reported before the game that the Jets were going to play more of their young players this game. How did that turn out? I mean, you still had CJ Uzama taking most of the tight end snaps. You still had, they said they were going to get Irvin Charles involved, Brownlee. They didn't take any of the snaps away from Lazard in this game. So that was all bull. That was all bullshit. I mean, that was all BS, some smoke screen. I don't understand. Like, you're right. It's actually the definition of, what is it? I was trying to think of it. It's lunacy. Insanity, doing the same thing and expecting a different result. And it's the same result. Your offense can't score. So why are you using the same personnel? You're not going to make any changes. You're not going to make a change. I believe it's long overdue to not have Hackett call plays anymore. And I know that
you have to fire him. You can't just demote him. You got to fire him.
You know what? No, but Matthew, I think that they're not going to fire him because it's Rodgers' guy. I think the only way that you keep him is not have him call plays and have someone else take over. Maybe hire an offensive mind in the offseason, have him call plays, and have Hackett be like an assistant coach just so he's Rodgers.
This was always curious. Even when Rodgers, there was the reported list. Rodgers wants him to sign this guy, bring in his offensive coordinator. That was always so curious. You're really going to tailor like your whole team around this guy, and then he ends up going down, which is, I get, it's the worst case scenario, but it just feels like it's you're too dependent on Aaron, even when he's hurt, dependent on Aaron Rodgers. Like this is his guy. We can't fire him just out of fear that he's not going to come back next year. They're totally tied to the hip to Aaron Rodgers. He's played 4 snaps for his team, so it's a lack of like preparation overall for this. That all of these guys are Aaron Rodgers guys, and the guys that have in past years have worked with Aaron Rodgers, like Hackett, Lazard. They've worked with Aaron Rodgers in the past, Randall Cobb, and they've been successful. But what if Aaron Rodgers goes down? You still have to keep this like Aaron Rodgers mindset offense when with Zach Wilson, it just was never going to work.
Yeah, no, you're right, and I think that. Look, a lot of people are going to say, well, why did the Jets listen to Rodgers with everything? I think Lazard at the time was a good move because Rodgers had familiarity with him in Hackett's style, in the Hackett style offense. I think that was a fine move. Honestly, I think if they didn't get Rodgers, they still would have looked at Lazard as an upgraded wide receiver because they need some more depth there. So I'm not going to kill him with the Lazard move. And Cobb, they signed Randall Cobb to be their fourth. I guess he ended up being the 4th string wide receiver because after Corey Davis retired, he slotted in there at wide receiver 3. So I guess he was like a wide receiver 4, special teams guy just for depth. But when Davis walked out, he had a big role on the team. And Randall Cobb is statistically one of the worst wide receivers in the whole league.
Yeah, everything.
He's washed up. He's terrible. So you're right. I think a lot of people are going to rip Rodgers for why did he bring all of his guys? Why the Jets allowed us to do this? I think it's. You wouldn't have said this if Rodgers was still on the field right now.
No, obviously, I think that.
And I know you're handcuffed with him with Hackett. You brought Hackett over here mainly to attract Aaron Rodgers to come to your team, right? But now I think you have to say to Rodgers, hey man, his offense is not working. He is probably the worst coordinator in the league. I will go as far as saying that he is not a good offensive coordinator. He was a disastrous head coach, and you have to say the last 2 years have been disasters for him on offense. So you have to tell Rodgers, say, man, we'll keep him as in an assistant role, not really doing much to the offense. We're going to bring an offensive genius here to be an offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
And if Rodgers is not okay with that, that's a problem. And it's a huge problem on the Jets' hand if he's not okay with that.
But look at Hackett's success. And I think that, John, you could call plays on the Packers offense that he was running with Devontae Adams, Aaron Jones in his prime, Aaron Rodgers, back-to-back MVPs, David Bakhtiari when healthy, top left tackle. I think you could be calling players, hey, we're going to run slants here. If you just spend a little, honestly, him, succeeding in that offense is not impressive at all to me. Because I think if you're not succeeding in that offense, you have a big problem. So he was just kind of making ends meet basically with the Packers and running a good offense over there, which they had so many weapons. So I don't really. I mean, I think it's just such a tough decision because what if Aaron Rodgers says no, this is my guy, we're going to keep it, and Nathaniel Hackett, like what do you do? It's just such a bad position to be in where Aaron Rodgers is basically the GM of your team right now, and
it is
if he's on the field, you're right. Maybe we're talking about it's worth it. We're not having this conversation for sure, but it's the reality is he's not, and he's still the GM of your team, which just it honestly sucks.
It does. One other thing,
Tim Boyle this week is not going to solve any problems. For those thinking like this is like the big change that's gonna fix stuff this week. This is not going to solve any problems. Tim Boyle, we were before the show, we were talking about his college stats, terrible college stats. In the NFL, 3 touchdowns, 9 interceptions.
Yeah.
This guy's not the solution. They said this guy's a guy that's played in Nathaniel Hackett's system before. But the real experiment for me would be to try Trevor Siemian, which I hope they do.
Yeah, I just don't understand why Trevor Siemian was never elevated from the practice squad, was never the backup for Zach Wilson. Look, Tim Boyle, we all know it. He's a bad quarterback. Zach Wilson, also bad quarterback. But Tim Boyle, the one thing with Tim Boyle is the fact that you're making a change. I think that it will spark the defense to maybe, play a little bit better. I think it's going to spark the offense a little bit. I think they're going to move the ball a little bit better. I'm not saying they're going to score 21 points. Maybe you're looking at 10 to 14 points. His defense isn't great, but it is still pretty solid. It's not as great as the Bills, but it's pretty solid. So you're not going to see like an offensive shootout by the Jets in this game. You're not going to see that by any means. It's not going to solve their issues. It might solve it, in the first quarter when they get a little spark, but after that it's going to even out because of how bad of a quarterback we all know Tim Boyle is. But Trevor Siemian, you know what he is. He's a journeyman. He's not gonna lose you the game. He actually is if you look at his highlights, I know they're highlights. I mean, they're not going to show any of his bad plays, but he's an accurate mid-level accuracy. He gets it in tight windows. He's a statue in the pocket. You're not with the bad offensive line, he might get sacked 10 times in a game, but you know what you're getting with him. And with Tim Boyle, you're getting a bad quarterback. With Trevor Siemian, you're getting a guy that's serviceable. And I don't know why they haven't made him a starting quarterback. I don't know why they haven't elevated him. Was it a move to just appease the fan base at the time when everyone was clamoring for them just to sign a quarterback? I just don't get it.
I don't get it. And Trevor Siemian is somebody that's filled in admirably in the NFL. We talked about this before in 2021 for the Saints. I think he filled in and had 11 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. Impressive stuff. Now, we look at Tim Boyle, the only time he's had an opportunity, you're right, in college. What conference is UConn in? The American Conference. I've never heard of that conference. No competition whatsoever. And, John, his stats are worse than we thought. 1 touchdown in his college career, 13 interceptions.
It's bad.
It's really bad. It's so much worse. We thought it was 20 touchdowns, 25 interceptions. This guy was a backup at UConn. Whenever he came, then when he came in across 3 years, 1 touchdown, 13 interceptions, has had no success at the NFL level as well. This guy's going to be worse than Zach Wilson this week. It's you can say it's going to spark the defense a little bit. One thing it's not going to spark is the passing game, I would say most likely. So,
I mean,
I heard that Trevor Siemian is backing up this game, and honestly, I would say get ready to see Trevor Siemian in the third quarter when this guy's throwing 2 interceptions.
Yeah, one thing, and I will say one thing you saw with Tim Boyle when he came in against the Bills was his decision-making. He was very quick with getting out the ball, something you don't see with Zach Wilson. So maybe at least he doesn't look like a freaking high school kid out there playing quarterback for the Jets. At least, and he's not going to be great. And maybe he'll surprise us. Maybe he'll put up a Mike White performance against the Bengals, part 2 maybe. That's not going to happen. But I think that the change was overdue. It's week 12 now against the Dolphins. They should have did this move week 7. Week 6, they should have did this move week 2. They should have signed a quarterback
after the Patriots game. That was the move that.
Yes, I don't care. I don't really care what he did against the Chiefs. They should have made the change before that. I don't care what he did. He had a great game. Good for him. A broken clock is right twice a day. With the deal with Zach Wilson performing good against the Chiefs. He's a terrible quarterback. I don't want to hear anyone defend him anymore. I hate these Zach Wilson truthers. Dan Orlovsky of ESPN saying, "Oh, you could put Ben Roethlisberger in there. You could put prime Brady in there and he won't succeed." Give me a freaking break. But this guy stinks. I'm so tired of the defenders here. Now, he might not have the best weapons. The Jets offensive line might stink, but he still is so bad. Like he's not helping. Like he's not helping his case. He went
Yeah.
7 for 15, 81, like 81 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick, and an interception that was horrendous. Almost threw an interception the pass before that. So he was terrible yet again. He is one of the worst quarterbacks in NFL history. He's really competing with Jamarcus Russell for one of the biggest busts in NFL history.
Yeah, no, it's really bad. I think with that, let's move on to the Giants Commanders. And this was a game where I was hoping that the Giants would compete but lose. I think that's what I stated last podcast. And not only did they compete, they won. Good showings on offense and defense. Tommy DeVito, a great game, 250 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. No good, 6 turnovers forced on defense, and no, so it's like it's bittersweet. I mean, I cannot lie when I say that no, seeing Kayvon Thibodeau crack double-digit sacks is like is a fun thing, and watching the Giants defense have 3 interceptions, 3 forced fumbles, and throw 3 touchdown passes for the first time since 2019. No, it was fun, but ultimately, no, the Giants are not in any sort of race for the playoffs. So losing this game probably does in the long run more harm than it does good. But also with that, you don't play to lose on the field. Like Brian Dable's job is not to go out there and lose. Like when he's out there, he has to try to some extent. So I don't know what to even make of this situation.
Yeah. And look, tanking the NFL, people are going to say that the teams should tank, but the players are not going to operate like that. You're not going to tell a locker room, just lose this game. That's not how the players play. These players are looking to get contracts, and everything's on tape nowadays. They're not going to play bad. Like you're only going to tank if you have a bad team. Like you're not. That's not a switch that goes on and say, "Oh, you're going to lose this game for us to get Caleb Williams." Like I feel like none of those players even care about that. They're caring about their performance.
Yeah, no.
And when you have a bad team, they just care about individual performance, how they do, trying to get a contract. But Matthew, we talk about Tommy DeVito. I mean, he threw 3 touchdowns, no picks, had a 137 passer rating.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen someone on the Jets ever had that performance, but like a 137 passer rating. I've never seen that.
This is more
Tommy
touchdowns.
DeVito. Yeah. It's more touchdowns than Daniel Jones has ever thrown in his career, I believe, in a game.
Yeah. Since 2019, Daniel Jones has not thrown 3 touchdowns. And it's also more touchdowns than Zach Wilson's thrown all year. And all of these.
He's never had 3 touchdowns in a game, I believe.
Yeah, but it's more. Tommy DeVito has 6 touchdown passes this year. Zach Wilson has 5 in the year. So Tommy DeVito's done that in 2 starts. So, no, good on him. He's competing for a backup spot. It's not, nobody's coming out of this game and be like, oh, Tommy DeVito, the starter next year. If you can get him, he's undrafted free agent. He'd be the cheapest backup in the league. If he's competing for a backup spot next year. So this is a step towards that, but he's going to get the opportunity to start the last 7 games of the year now. So we'll see how he does with that, but that's going to be the real measure of whether he gets that or not.
Well, good for him, right? I mean, look, they go on the road against the Commanders, a team that's still fighting for a playoff spot. And they played spoiler to the Commanders, probably ending their season. So the Giants, I mean, if the Giants played the Commanders every single game of the year, they would be 17-0. They own this franchise. Dan Snyder or not, they own the Commanders. And look, Tommy DeVito, what a hell of a performance. A guy that's still living with his freaking parents is doing better than any quarterback that I've seen play for the Jets. I mean, are you kidding me? Like I think that's a stupid story as well. The kid's like 24. It's expensive to live in New York. Like it's not really that big of a story, but I'm just saying this for, a comedy effect. But like, it's just so pathetic. That's a guy like Tommy DeVito. We never heard of. We made fun of him in the preseason. Puts on the best performance in New York football this season as a quarterback. It's so pathetic. It's so pathetic with the state of New York football, Matthew. And honestly, like the Giants, like the fans are probably like, all right, let this be the last one of the season because we still want to get like a top 5 draft pick to pick our quarterback of the future. But this one is pretty nice. It's pretty cool to see a story of DeVito.
No, it is. And honestly, I'm looking at this game. I'm just torn. I'm kind of rooting for – and what I was rooting for was the Giants to compete. I don't want them to get blown out against the Commanders. Like, the Commanders aren't a good team.
Division.
It's in division team. The Commanders aren't a good team. I want to see them compete, but, winning ultimately does nothing. Like, it just doesn't do anything. So, but it was cool to see guys like Darius Slayton, who, by the way, I would like to shout out Darius Slayton because he's led the Giants in receiving yards for now 4 out of the past 5 years. And he's not been like a excellent player, but he was like a 6th-round pick. So leading this team in receiving yards for 4 of the last 5 years. Shout out, the consistency there. But then also, good defensive showing as well. The Commanders' offense It's not like super dynamic, but they throw the ball around a little bit. They try to move the field. They try to move the ball down the field. So, Kayvon Thibodeau, I guess he owns the Commanders too. He has like 5 sacks against the Commanders and 5 sacks against everyone else this year. 3 interceptions. That's like the Giants were one of the worst teams in turnovers this year, and now they're like one of the best, 6 turnovers
Yes.
this game. So it's their first time since I think 2014 with 6 turnovers.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Sam Howell's not a joke on at the quarterback position. I mean, he had the most passing yards for a quarterback this season going into this game.
Yeah, he's
So I mean,
not.
it's not something to scoff at. I mean, it really isn't. And Sam Howell's been a solid quarterback this year. The Giants made him look really bad with 1 touchdown, 3 picks, 255 yards. I think Bobby Okereke has been probably the best Giants defensive player outside of Thibodeau. Probably them neck and neck, but Thibodeau has really showed a lot in his development. He's getting better every week. And a lot of he received a lot of criticism from like New York, radio hosts about how he's not getting enough sacks. And now his pressures are turning into sacks. Now all those people are silenced by him. He's really grown as a player this year. I really am proud. Like he's been awesome, and it's really exciting for Giants fans because their defense is starting to take shape. It's just the offensive and the quarterback, the question mark for next year. But look, the Giants, and we said like the wide receiver room, like Robinson and Hyde, who we had high hopes for, even in a game where Tommy DeVito has 250 yards, those guys are pretty silent. I mean, Robinson with 35 yards, Hyatt with 1 reception at 7 yards. So those guys remain quiet, which is kind of concerning because you hope those guys are. I mean, I know they're still young, still a rookie and a second-year player, but I mean, they got to improve. I mean, this wide receiver room isn't great. And Saquon Barkley, another tremendous game, over 100 yards scrimmage yards. So that's he's been amazing, just a consistent force on that offense every single game.
No, I mean, without Saquon Barkley, there'd be no threats. I mean, it just wouldn't work with this offense. So I mean, yeah, like it's uncertain his future with the Giants, but you have to consider the fact that he's been reliable this year. Even despite missing those 3 games, when he's been out there, he's been reliable, basically productive every game. But yeah, like you said, Wan'Dale Robinson, one thing for Jalen Hyatt is this guy needs to work on medium and short route running because right now he's only effective in running. He's a burner. He's one of the fastest guys in the league. And when you have Tommy DeVito, who's like his big flaw is arm strength, terrible arm strength. That's what like the scouting report is on him. It's probably not going to work where you're just running like straight down the field with Jalen Hyatt. It's probably just not going to be a good connection. So, I would think, though, that Wan'Dale Robinson would fit perfectly with Tommy DeVito, like kind of accurate, short. Wan'Dale Robinson's supposed to be like a slot to the sticks guy. So, it's something to watch for the rest of the year. I mean, they're still building chemistry, but somebody like Jalen Hyatt, like I think his rookie season is like for whatever the stats you've put up. I just don't see, unless he improves within the next couple weeks on short route running. I don't think he's going to be a factor for the rest of the year, really.
Yeah, Matthew. I mean, look, it's a good point. Hyatt's been kind of disappointing. You're right. He has to improve on those. He basically just goes deep every day. He's a great, speedy guy, dynamic. You want him with the ball in space, but the question is how are you going to get it to him with the guy with terrible, probably high school arm strength and Tommy DeVito. And I honestly, I don't want to make fun of this guy. He had a great game.
He did
against a solid defense. Like not a terrible. I mean, like not.
They had 9 sacks defenders. They got
did.
pressure.
I couldn't believe it. I saw at the end of the first quarter he had 5 sacks against him. So and I was like, how are the Giants winning this game if you have 5 sacks against him? But yeah, the offensive line. And look, again, going back to the Jets, Tommy DeVito probably has worse weapons than Zach Wilson and a worse O-line, and he still had a performance. He still had like over 200 yards, 3 touchdowns. Like it's just like it says a lot. It says a lot
about Wilson, and it says a lot about the offensive coordinator. I saw a lot of
McCaffrey's
very interesting, well-schemed plays this game for how bad the Giants' offense has been, and they don't get a pass. Obviously, the coaching for how this entire year has gone, but given like the situation, they recognized, hey, we have Tommy DeVito, a quarterback. Like, how are we going to kind of scheme guys open and work with this? I think they did a really good job with that.
Yeah, the Jets like red zone offense, like the scheme itself is just terrible. Like I look back at the 2-point conversion. Look at that 2-point conversion play the Jets had. You had 2 running backs in the backfield, and then you look at the receivers. They go on like a hitch or a slant, and they just stop running. Like, how is that going to do anything for you? Dalvin Cook's going for a screen pass along the sideline. Breece Hall's just standing there, like not even knowing it.
Conversion.
It's so disorganized. Like, it's just unbelievable how bad Hackett is. Like it's really bad. Like
You're supposed to pull out your most creative. I mean, look,
yes,
I get it. I get it. The Jets were. I mean, it was still 16-6, right, when they scored a touchdown.
yeah, it was 16-6, trying to make it a one possession game,
So that
and
that is a situation. It wasn't 32-6 and 32-0, and they
yeah, it was a
scored. You
game.
got to pull out your. You're supposed to pull out your most
Mhm.
creative play, like most like high conversion rate play for the 2-point conversion. And no, if that's it, you're right. You're right. It says a lot about coaching. And always with something with the Giants. Even last year, you factor in like the first game of the season last year when they went for two and they won that game instead of kicking the extra point. No, I think they've been like even like the play with Tyrod Taylor against the Bills, Darren Waller,
Yes.
pass interference, nothing.
Yes.
Those plays have at least been competitive, like
Mhm.
always. Those
Oh, you
those
should have got
plays.
another pass interference call in the second play
Right,
that happened.
exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like it was a good play. You drew pass interference again, basically nothing you could do about it. Those plays are always competitive for the Giants, and for the Jets, it's always like a disaster.
It is.
So
I look, Nathaniel Hackett's probably going to get some, interviews in the head coaching tree. No,
yeah,
he's
I
not.
mean,
No chance.
Sean
I think
Payton was right.
after will
Sean
though.
Payton was right.
He was right. Look, he was right, but it's still kind of like you don't say that in public. Like, that's not a respectful thing to do. But Sean Payton, look, he can talk the talk right now. Like, he's still they didn't beat the Jets, but they're on a 4-game winning streak, and
Yeah,
they're 5-5 right now, still in the neck of the
and
playoff race.
it's not a. It's a team that I don't know if they deserve to be. The defense is. It's a really bad defense. So they've
It,
done. I mean, he's
look,
done
it
a
is,
solid
yeah.
job there.
And look, he has a bad defense, but he's made the most out of it. Sean he's calling all the offensive plays. Russell Wilson's gotten a heck of a lot better this year.
He's been much
And they're
better.
a team I don't think they're going to make the playoffs when it's all said and done. I think the playoff field right now for the AFC, if you look at it right now, I think it's probably set. Maybe the Bills will overtake the Steelers for the 7th spot. I think other than that, it's set because of Burrow going down. It's over for the Bengals. You have the Vegas Raiders are not making it. Broncos are probably not. Colts are not. So I think right now it's probably set where
Mm-hmm.
it's gonna end up.
Yep, I think that's good for Giants. Games this weekend. I think the Jets and Giants are both out, so kind of meaningless. But obviously,
Hey, I'm going to the Black Friday game. I hope it's a good game.
yeah.
Look, I think that
Mm-hmm.
hopefully Boyle adds a spark. I think a lot of fans are going to announce the offense. Boyle will come out with that American flag with the lights.
Oh
No,
no.
it's not going to happen. But I think he probably will get a standing ovation because of how much we're yearning for
Yeah,
good quarterback play.
it'll be symbolic of change. So
Yes, it will.
that's good. But that covers the Jets and Giants. Let's move on. We have a new segment today. Our one where we drafted
Let's
New
do
York
it.
players was very popular. Everyone seemed to like it. So now we're actually going to be drafting the worst Jets and Giants players of our generation. So it's basically we're going to be selecting 2 quarterbacks and 4 skill players. Wide receiver, running back, or tight end. So John's with the Jets. I'm with the Giants. It's just with our generation. So it's basically for me, it's basically the past 5-7 years. For John, a little longer. Add 2 more years to that. So it's only basically recent. But John, why don't you start?
Yeah, I'm like Hackett with the play calling here, so symbolizing
Yeah.
how bad he is drafting a bad team. So, all right, so we'll go cool. You know what? I actually have the head coach and the offensive coordinator for mine,
Oh
Matthew. So
wow.
coaching my team is no one other than Adam Gase. Head
Hmm.
coaching my team, just historically one of the worst coaches of all time. Just look clueless. I think there was at one point. I remember it was like one game the Jets were losing maybe by 25 points, and the coach is always standing up next to like the change where the line of scrimmage is. He was sitting on the bench like the quarterback does, looking at film. Like he just gave up. I remember that. I was like, this is so pathetic. I just had that image in my mind. Him sitting on the bench just giving up. So he was such a bad coach. And offensive coordinator for my team is Darryl Loggins, Adam Gase's offensive coordinator. Who that guy? I mean, look, I had a hard time picking between Hackett and Loggins, but Darryl Loggins was just pathetic. I don't think he actually prior experience to becoming to the Jets offensive coordinator under Adam Gase. I don't think he had any experience. Maybe like high school. I think he went from high school to the Jets. To be honest with you, he was so bad. And that's my head coach and offensive coordinator, Matthew. We'll go to I don't know if you have a coach.
Yeah, no,
Quarterback.
now that you've said it, I didn't initially think of one, but for me, it's pretty easy. I think it's for coach, it's Joe Judge, and
Oh yeah,
2 years coaching the Giants. And the first one, admittedly, he was old school. The Giants were competitive. They said they were playing for him, and it seemed like, oh, this guy's not a bad coach. And in the second year, as soon as adversity hit, just no creativity. This problems here, problems there. He got into. He just made the team about him. He got into a fight with the offensive line coach, like actual fist fight during practice, and that was a big story. The team was running QB sneaks, 1st and 10, 2nd and 10.
yes.
So And honestly, a lot of these guys I'm going to pick from this team are from that team, from Joe Judge's QB sneak team. So that's my my head coach and my offensive coordinator is also Joe Judge's offensive coordinator, Jason Garrett. And I think
Ah,
you look at this, you look at this, this is a guy with a lot of experience, coached the Cowboys, and it was exciting, honestly, when they got Jason Garrett. He was a head coach and he was experienced. It was exciting. And this guy, he just no creativity on offense. They ran curls every play, sticks. They devalued and they put no emphasis on explosive plays, none whatsoever. I think the Giants that year, no, the passing during Jason Garrett's years, passing game was just terrible. And that's when they were going to move off Daniel Jones before last year. He had a good year last year with Brian Dable, but all hope was lost with Jason Garrett for 2 years.
yeah, man, what a great group of coaches that we just picked there. So going on to quarterback, my starter, Zach Wilson. I mean, he's probably the worst quarterback I've ever seen play. I don't, and on my backup is Christian Hackenberg. It isn't even Sam Darnold. I don't even know if you even heard of Christian Hackenberg, Matthew. He was a third round selection by the Jets from, I think he went to Penn State. He was hyped up to be like a guy that's going to sit behind a veteran like Josh McCown, who the Jets had at the time, and was going to be a solid player. And he never touched the field for the Jets in a regular season game because of how bad he was in practice. So he goes down as a big bust for me.
Wow.
It was a third round pick, not a lot of expectations, but he was hyped up a little bit. And then Zach Wilson speaks for itself. We talk about it every single week, how bad he is, how much he sucks. So Zach Wilson is my starter for my historically bad Jets team that I've seen.
Yeah, I think my QBs are worse. You factor in Zach Wilson for how bad he's been. At least he's gotten like leash of 3 seasons of football. My pick, I couldn't even decide the starter between Jake Fromm and Mike Glennon.
Oh,
Jake
man.
Fromm was an emergency replacement. Daniel Jones had the neck injury. Mike Glennon was struggling immensely. Mike Glennon was so terrible. And they were like, "Oh, let's see what we have." Jake Fromm out of Georgia. He was a good college quarterback, and honestly, I was kind of excited to see how he.
Yes, Georgia, right?
Georgia, yeah.
Yeah.
And so he was a legit college quarterback. Came in and was worse than Mike Glennon. They couldn't even throw the ball with Jake Fromm. He just could not throw the ball, and it was like the Jets Giants game when they put in Tommy DeVito, and Tommy DeVito couldn't throw.
Really?
They wouldn't let him throw that game for 3 games. They just would not let Jake Fromm throw.
Jake from State Farm.
Exactly, Jake Fromm, State Farm. He's my starter, and then my backup is Mike Glennon. And for comparison, during these starts, Jake Fromm averaged 70 passing yards a game. Mike Glennon 131. Mike Glennon 4 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. Jake Fromm 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions. So just totally anemic on offense with those quarterbacks.
Matthew, we're going to go to wide receiver now. So, actually, we'll go to running back first, behind the quarter in the backfield. So my first guy that I have up here is Le'Veon Bell. Now, not talent.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Before he went to the Jets, probably the best running back in the league. I mean, he was unbelievable for Pittsburgh. When the Jets signed him, I was so excited. I believe I got a jersey. I got a poster in my room of Le'Veon Bell. So excited. Comes to the Jets, and you know the rest is history. I mean, he sucks. I mean, he has one good game on opening day, scores a touchdown in his first game back to the NFL from sitting out 1 year. So he scores a touchdown there. I believe he caught a 2-point conversion from Sam Darnold that game. So he was good. And then he averaged like 2 yards per carry the rest of the way. And he was cut midway into his second year with the Jets. So big free agency bust for the Jets.
Mm-hmm.
And my backup running back is going to be Frank Gore. I still haven't forgiven him for how good he was in that Rams game. Just spoiling the Jets' chances at Trevor Lawrence. So Frank Gore, I don't know what he had something against Adam Gase. Adam Gase would never take him out. He was like 37 going on 38 that year. I don't know. He was very old. I don't know exactly how old he was, but that guy was toast. He was washed up, and just something with Adam Gase with running him up the middle for 2 yards. Just I don't know what he had against Adam Gase, Frank Gore, but he had some blackmail on him. I truly believe that.
Yeah, I mean, honestly though, when you look at how bad Frank Gore was, like he was bad, but he wasn't like terrible. He was an interesting story that year that he was kind of a legend in the game. So I thought Frank Gore, like as like a not Jets fan, was kind of like a fun thing, a fun experiment. Mine, and this was the hardest position picking for me because the Giants, while I've been alive, have had solid running backs. Obviously, Saquon Barkley from 2018 to the present. And before that, Brandon Jacobs, Orleans Darkwa. these guys were always solid, so I'd feel bad about picking them. But mine is, you're not going to know who this is, but mine is Eli Penny. And this was very recent, 2021. They Saquon Barkley coming back from the injury. I think he had a high ankle sprain or something this year. Didn't play all 17 games. They also had Devontae Booker, who rushed for 600 yards that year. It wasn't bad. But during this time with Jake Fromm, they announced they were going to kind of do like a youth movement to see who was good with running back. And their starter for 1 week, they announced at running back, was going to be their fullback, Eli Penny. And this guy was a solid fullback. I'm not going to lie. He wasn't a terrible fullback, but they announced that for 2 weeks, he was going to be the starting running back. And it was a total, I don't even know what they were thinking. Like, this guy's just not made for running back. He had 10 carries for 20 yards. And then on the year, 99 yards on 30 carries for the year. It just was a total failed experiment to try to announce your fullback as your full-time starting running back. So that's my pick.
Yeah, good one right there, Matthew. So we're gonna move on to wide receiver now. And you know who my wide receiver is gonna be from this year. I won't say him yet. I'm gonna say my first one. On one outside is gonna be Denzel Mims, a guy that was chosen in the second round from Baylor. I was really excited when they made this pick. I thought it was a steal. Little did I know that he was not going to score a touchdown in his Jets career. Still doesn't have one on another team. Never played a snap for another team outside the Jets. But in 30 games, he had 676 yards, no touchdowns, and I believe it was 42 receptions in 30 games. That is so bad. I know he had Sam Darnold as his quarterback, Zach Wilson for some time, but yeah, really just a really bad bust for the Jets. Never got it going. He was supposed to be this guy that was a great route runner with having good height, good with 50-50 balls, and just had stone for hands. He got, it seemed like that. Like, I feel like when Zach, I think in 2021, his second year, I think he had a good first game against the Panthers, I believe, when Zach Wilson was playing in his first game. So there was some hope there, but he was just such a big bust. And in the second round, that's a premium pick. He was terrible.
I remember how excited you were when they got Denzel Mims. That was supposed to be, I mean, it would be like, guys for the Giants, like Wan'Dale Robinson and Jalen Hyatt, average having 200 yards a year for 3 years and getting cut. It would just be it was a total disappointment. I remember that. But for me, I only picked one running back. So I have 2 wide receivers and 1 tight end as my 4 skill players. So I'll start with my wide receiver 1. We have Kenny Galladay. I couldn't really pass the chance to have this one. This was one of the, I looked at his stats the other day, and this guy got like one of the highest, the biggest wide receiver contracts ever, and his stats just didn't back it. I was so excited when they signed him, but it just didn't make sense. His stats never really kind of warranted top wide receiver in the game money, and he's not been on the other team since the Giants. He's still getting paid by the Giants. He's on the 3rd year of his 4-year, $80 million contract. Technically, he's still on the team.
Oh my God!
And last year, when he was still supposed to be a prominent figure, he caught 33% of his targets for 81 yards. And the year before, he caught just under 50% of his targets, 0 touchdowns, had 500 yards that year. But it was just a disappointment, the whole year. It was so disappointing. And it's supposed to be a guy with height, like kind of similar to Denzel Mims, but much height. This guy was supposed to be red zone, tremendous threat in the red zone. And nothing worked with a Kenny guy. It was a terrible experiment.
Yeah. All right, Matthew. Going on to my next receiver, Alan Lazard of the New York Jets. Look, I had him, Matthew. Remember when we did our mock offseason? I had the Jets signing him. Yeah, I wanted him all along because of the fact that Aaron Rodgers was going to come, but he's just been a big letdown. And even without Aaron Rodgers, you thought he was going to be a solid wide receiver 2/3, good guy in the red zone because of his height. And I'm convinced this guy is stones for hands. He can't catch a cold of it games. I mean, he's so bad. And look, I saw before his concerns were always his hands. He couldn't catch well, but I didn't think it was going to get to this point. Like, he is just horrendous. And I'll say his stats right here. 10 games started, 290 yards. That's good for 29 yards per game. That's just not going to cut it. As a second wide receiver option.
No touchdowns, right?
I think he has 1 touchdown in the Chiefs game.
Okay.
1 touchdown he has, but that's not going to cut it as a second wide receiver option from Garrett Wilson. You're expected, he's getting one-on-one coverage because Garrett Wilson's getting doubled and triple teams. So like he had to step up for the Jets this year, and he hasn't, and he probably will not for the rest of the year based on what we've seen. And big bust. I mean, you gave this guy, I believe, 3 years, $40 million. So a decent chunk of change, and he hasn't provided anything for your offense. He's been a liability, really
Mhm.
bad.
Yeah. My second wide receiver is Kadarius Toney, and no, this was a roller coaster of an experience, the Kadarius Toney experience. But I want to preface this by saying that when you draft a wide receiver in the first round, there's like historical precedent for this, and just overall, when you draft receivers in the first round, they usually end up being absolute stars. Even this year, Zay Flowers is really good. Justin Jefferson was a kind of and Jamar Chase; those guys were first round picks, and not like top five either. Those when you draft a wide receiver in the first round, you kind of expect a superstar. And
Yeah.
this was, everything except he was not a superstar on the field. He was definitely not a superstar off the field. Drama with him every week, injuries, this, that, getting into fights. He was more focused on his career as a rap artist than he was on his football career. So that got in the way as well. And overall, his tenure with the Giants, being a first round pick, played just 12 games, caught just 40 receptions for a total of 400 yards, and was traded to the Chiefs for third and sixth round pick, and hasn't thrived there at all either. So it's just I don't think it's going to work for the rest of his career. It was supposed to be a speed, like a gadget guy, and this was a total disaster of a pick for a first round pick.
Matthew, I think we did a good job picking these teams. I think both of our teams have a very good
I
chance
still
of going
have
1-17.
I
You
still
still have
have
a
my tight
lineman?
end.
Oh, tight end. Okay. I don't.
I
Yeah.
still
Okay.
have so John, right? You picked two running backs, so I actually
I
have
did.
the
You have a
extra
tight
tight
end.
end. So I'll give mine. Mine is Kyle Rudolph, and
Oh yeah.
Kyle Rudolph was
Yes.
excellent with the Vikings,
Vikings.
like
Yeah.
a really good tight end. And the Giants were having all sorts of struggles with Evan Ingram, and Evan Ingram had all these drop problems, couldn't block. They drafted him the first round. He had 700 yards a year, Evan Ingram, but no drop problems, couldn't block. So they got Kyle Rudolph, who had been an excellent tight end in Minnesota, and it did not work in New York. He signed a big 2-year contract for a tight end. And tight ends don't get a
Yes.
lot of money really. Got a big tight end contract and put up. Let me see the official stats. 250 yards in 17 games. Played so at this time it was 16 games. Played every game he was eligible for with the Giants. But 200 yards, total disappointment. And he was a guy that put up close to 900 yards in his prime with the Vikings. And that's the guy I thought we were getting. And it just he was basically the third, fourth stringer by the end of the year.
Yep. Great. I think these are terrible teams. I think we did a great job. If I had a tight end spot, Matthew, you know who it would be. It would be a CJ Uzama. I mean, it would be. I
don't
don't
think
even
he's
think.
that bad.
No, he's bad.
I don't know
He's
about that.
really bad, Matthew. He doesn't contribute anything. Passing game, he's terrible. 58 yards last year, 232 yards. His run blocking is terrible. So what does he contribute to this team? And the fact that he's played as much as he has this season is just absolute lunacy. It's lunacy. It's ridiculous. He's honestly the worst tight end I've watched. Like, honestly, I can't think of another one. Like, Austin Seferian-Jenkins comes to mind, but he was even solid. Ryan Griffin, I think, had a good year for the Jets. So, like, the tight ends that I have watched, like, you didn't have much expectations for them because the Jets have never had, like, a real talented tight end. So, like, they've always exceeded my expectations from the tight ends I've watched. So, like, this is a no-brainer for me. I think it's not really hard of a choice.
Okay. All right. So I think I agree. Both teams terrible. Let us know which team is worse. We'll put up an Instagram post like last time. There's a lot of interactions with that. But let's move on to our spread picks.
Yes.
This past week, we're still waiting on the results for the Sunday night game, which I picked as my 3-point pick, Chiefs minus 2.5. But John got 3 points. His Vikings pick hit, and what was the second pick that hit last week?
Last week, I had the Vikings, and I had the
Steelers or the Browns.
No,
3-point.
I had the Vikings. Who the heck did I ask? Oh, I had the Raiders plus 13.5.
Oh, right. So John had 3 points. I only had 0.5 points because the Texans I picked the Texans minus 5. It's a push. So the updated standings, we're still waiting on the Chiefs game for me, is 44 to 35.5. So, John, why don't you start with your 1-point pick, and let's get the music on.
Yep. Let me cue the music here. So my 1-point pick, I'm gonna ride the Tommy DeVito train against the New England Patriots. The New England Patriots are so bad. They don't even know their quarterback. rumored to go to another team next year. It's disastrous ending. And they're sitting at 2-8. Giants 3-8. This game is at MetLife Stadium on Sunday. I think the Giants are going to win this game. I mean, they beat the Commanders on the road. There's no reason for me to believe that the Patriots are going to win this game. And the fact that they are the favorites to win this game is just surprising to me. They've lost their two key defensive players, Matthew Judon and their cornerback, Christian Gonzalez, the rookie that had that really good season before he got hurt. So the defense isn't even a strong suit anymore. Their offense thinks they don't have a quarterback, and their coaching has been questionable this year. So yeah. I think the Giants are going to win this game outright and obviously cover the 3 points.
Yep, I have Jets Dolphins as my 3-point pick, but I have the Dolphins minus 9.5. I'm not. I told you this already. I'm not banking on the Tim Boyle spark. I think it's going to be a big failure. I think he's going to really struggle out there, and then you're going to turn to Trevor Siemian. And for as good as the defense, you're right. That might be the spark, but the Dolphins are just. I think it's just going to be they're too fast, and they face some good defenses, and they've been able to score points. And I think it's going to be no different here. They're going to put up a decent amount of points, and the Giants are just the Jets are just not going to be able to match whatever they score.
Here's where we have some disagreement, Matthew, for some standings, for some impact on the standings here. I have the Jets plus 9.5. Mm-hmm. I mean, the line. It's so weird because the line when Zach Wilson was thought to be the starter was 7.5. Tim Boyle gets announced it's 9.5. Are you is it really Zach Wilson adds 2 points to this Jets team?
No, but
what are these Vegas better? What are they seeing in this? I understand Tim Boyle's not an upgrade. I think he's still a slight upgrade over Zach Wilson, as bad as he has been in his college career. I think he's still an upgrade, Matthew. His decision-making itself is an upgrade. He's going to get the ball out sooner. I think the Jets are going to hold. I think it's going to be a touchdown game. I really believe something in me is saying the Dolphins, they barely beat the Raiders. The Raiders had a chance to win the game late. They got stopped there on a turnover on down. So I think that the Jets are going to stay in this game at home. I'm going to the game. I just hope it's a close game, and 9.5 is a big point spread at home, I think, for the Jets. So I think they're going to cover this 9.5. They're not going to win the game, but 9.5 is a big one for me to. I think it's enough points for me to pick the Jets in this one.
Yep. I mean, we'll see. Obviously, it has an implication on the standings.
Yeah, it's good.
So my 2-point pick is Cowboys Commanders. The Cowboys are favored by 10.5 points, and I have them covering. So I guess that's 2 big spreads for me. But you look at this Commanders team. And they lost by that margin to the Giants, and the Giants are, much worse than the Cowboys, to say the least. So I think the Cowboys are at home. There's going to be no restriction. The Cowboys are fighting for, they're if the Eagles lose this game, they're on the hunt for that number 1 seed spot. They're going to be totally ruthless if they're tied with the Eagles. Point differential might matter. All of that stuff might matter. Strength of schedule, head-to-head victories. So let's see how it goes. I have the Cowboys minus 10.5.
Matthew, I have a late switch right here. I see your 3-point pick. Your 3-point pick right now is the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm riding with CJ Stroud in this one.
Wow.
I think that it's for 3 points. So we have 2 potential swings here. I have the Jets, you have the Dolphins. I have the Texans, you have the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think that the Texans are home this game. They are, I believe, on a 3-game winning streak. CJ Stroud has really come into his own the past 4 weeks, looking like a top 10 quarterback already. As crazy as that sounds because of how bad the quarterback play in this league is. But CJ Stroud's a stud. I know he didn't have a great game last week. Still had over 300 yards, but didn't have a great game and almost lost to the Cardinals. But still got it done on the road. A road game is hard enough to win in the NFL. He still got it done. I think he's going to get it done in a statement divisional win against the Jaguars at home. I have the Texans winning this game and covering the 1 point at home.
Wow, I was not expecting that, but late switch from you, but I'm still going to keep my Jaguars pick. They facing, as you mentioned, the Texans, and I think the key here is I believe, and I don't think either defense is particularly outstanding. I think they're both kind of okay, but I believe in that the Jaguars' offense is more proven and more consistent than the Texans' offense. Trevor Lawrence and C.J. Stroud. Similar. C.J. Stroud's been great this year, but Trevor Lawrence been in the league a little longer. Travis Etienne, I'd probably rather have over. They have Devin Singletary, Damian Pierce. I'd rather have Travis Etienne. And at wide receiver, Christian Kirk, Alvin Ridley, Zay Jones, Evan Ingram at tight end. Those are legit proven weapons. And I think that when you look at the Texans, guys have had some really good years like Tank Dell. And a couple others have had some Nico Collins, really good years. Really good year this year. But I think that I believe in Calvin Ridley. I believe in the Jaguars offense is just a little more proven.
Yeah, Matthew. I mean, great picks right here. We have a lot on the line this week, so hopefully, we'll have some separation here. Whether
Hmm.
I get closer, or pull away with the lead here. But great episode as always, Matthew. We're gonna get to the Rangers and the Knicks in the next episode. They're rolling, both on I believe Knicks are on a 4-game winning streak. Rangers are still rolling at 12-2-1. So we'll get to them in the next episode. And we hope you guys enjoyed this one. We'll see you in the next one.